All right, welcome. If you're new to the channel, my name's Elliott and you're watching Rickety's Ski Reviews. Today, we're talking about Ski Essentials top 100mm underfoot skis, and we're going line by line and talking about the skis that we've skied on. This is taking a lot longer than I thought. This is a huge video, so I think each day I'm just gonna go through a different ski and see how it stacks up. I've gotten some comments, I've gotten some emails saying that people have watched this video and seen that Ski Essentials has changed some of their opinions over time, and those opinions have kind of lined up with what I've said. Now, I know they watched this, I don't know if they were influenced by it, but either way, we'll talk about that as we make our way to it. Now, when it comes to 100mm underfoot, it's kind of an interesting ski where I think 100mm underfoot is really good if you want something that's gonna carve, but also gonna be kind of powder leaning. I don't love 100mm underfoot if you're only going to use it for powder. So skis like the Atomic Bent 100, I don't think 100 is a great width. I think you might as well go up to a 110 or 120. Really have that ski kind of specialize in what you want. But then you have something like an Atomic Maverick 100 that also makes sense to me. So it just depends on what you're using it for. But let's just jump right into this video now that you know more about the 100mm. So today, let's talk about the Fischer Ranger 102. Now the Fischer Ranger, when I skied it, I really like this ski. I think that Fischer did a really good job of making it carve well and power through a lot of the harder conditions and then still had a little bit of flotation. The thing that really stuck out to me about the Fischer Ranger is what has always stuck out to me about Fischer race skis. It's kind of in their DNA as far as what they kind of like to appeal to with skiers. But the Fischer Rangers have really good turn initiation. It doesn't take a lot of pressure on the front of your boot to get the new turn started. They have kind of a hair trigger for being ready to start turns. And you know, if you're in the powder and you're in the trees and you want to have a quick turn, that's a nice feeling. Especially when I took these off the trail, I was really blown away by how good they felt. I also think that they carved well when I was on the trail. They floated in the powder. I mean, these are nice skis. They're very much kind of under the radar. It's like the people who are on them are diehard fans, but you don't hear a lot about them, and I don't see a lot of people skiing on them. I think that the Ranger is just an awesome build. This is the ski that my brother actually skis on back east, although he skis on the Fischer Ranger 90, obviously because he's on the East Coast. But he really likes them. He uses it as his daily driver. He spends, probably 5 days a week on the hill. My only critique that I would really say about the Fischer Ranger that I noticed is that because the turn initiation doesn't take a lot of pressure to initiate a turn, what can happen is if you start to preload your boot a little bit, it will sometimes misread either the pressure or, an uncomfortable upper body movement that you're doing just to get through the brush or, trying to inside clear a tree branch. It will sometimes miscommunicate that input as, oh, we're starting our next turn. We're gonna go now. And it's a very small subset complaint overall. I think that the ski has a lot of variety as far as terrains that I would ski it on. I also think that if you're somebody who's kind of advanced moving into expert or even upper intermediate moving up to advanced, I think this ski is a really good option because long term it's going to be a nice option for you. You're not going to outski it. It holds plenty of the energy, but I think that easy turn initiation is really good for people who are kind of getting used to carving because it doesn't take a ton of pressure in their boot to get the ski to initiate. And that allows them to then focus on the rest of the turn. They can focus on the apex of the turn. They can focus on kind of releasing and getting to the next turn. Especially when I ski it feels like the ski is almost turning for itself. That can be really good because it allows you as somebody who is really trying to learn more about carving, get better and focus on the rest of the turn and build that out. Me personally, I don't love having easy turn initiation just because I like to kind of savor my turns. That's why I tend to really like the Atomic Maverick because I like to kind of load up the tip and let it catch. But again, that's just a style thing. That's just a preference. I've never been upset skiing on the Fischers, and once I get used to the Fischers, I tend to really like them. But it usually takes me about an hour or so just to kind of get used to the timing because it is very different from what I'm used to. But overall, I really like this ski. I think it's a really good option for a lot of people who want to improve, who are learning how to pressure their boots and who are learning to kind of master their turn because it allows them to have the ski kind of be easily initiated by the pressure in their boots and then focus on kind of the nuance and the timing of a turn. That's my input. I like the ski a lot. I think it's a great option for a lot of people. I think the 102 if you're out west, specifically Colorado, Utah, Idaho. But that's enough of me. Let's see what Ski Essentials has to say. And here we go.
Because I think it's fair to say that you like the Scott more than me, and I got that one. And I think it's fair to say that I like this ski more than you, and you're the one that's going to introduce this.
Well, we can all have our own opinions on skis, and that's the fun part.
Yeah, no, that's...
Yep.
Totally.
These Ranger 102s...
Great ski.
carryover from last year. They do a lot of things really well. The shovel shape for me is a little bit tricky, just because it's on the softer side. We have footage of Chris, one of our employees, skiing on this in soft snow.
Yeah, they're going to see it.
And he is just like dialed on this ski.
Yep.
Like Emily, dialed
Yep.
on this ski.
Yep.
When you get a little bit heavier and a little bit more, I would say top heavy in my case.
Yep.
That's where my issues creep in.
Yeah, and Chris is probably lighter than me,
Yeah.
I think. He's at least similar weight to me, 150, 160.
Which is like, I think is a nice contrast to the head, which we talk about skiers like you, Chris, Emily, lighter skiers with good technique, kind of have a hard time, achieving the flex of the ski, whereas this is a lot more amenable to your input in terms of getting that ski to initiate.
Yep.
But we've gone over this before. It's a poplar beechwood core with this shaped Titanal laminate here. Does extend a little bit farther than...
Okay, I'm gonna address that because I honestly am a little bit more in Bob's camp when it comes to build. I'm a pretty big guy, I'm 6'1", probably about like 230 pounds, and let me give you my input as far as how the ski feels. This ski, probably that's why it feels like it has such easy turn initiation, is that softness in the tip. What that's allowing it to do is that when you load it and it gets to apex, it's not kind of gonna wobble out on you and feel like a wet noodle. But when you put just a little bit of pressure, that tip is gonna have an easy time flexing, at least in the initiation part of the turn. And what that can feel like, if you're not used to it, is that the ski is kind of overly responsive or touchy. And I definitely feel that, and that probably is partially because I'm a little bit bigger. What I found is that just getting used to that part of the turn not taking as much, and then really like focusing on the middle of the turn, I found it to be a lot easier. I think people who are lighter, who maybe have a hard time getting as much leverage as easily as somebody who's not only heavier, but taller, like height totally is a factor, because if you think about it, on your boots, you're creating a lever, and the more leverage you have, the easier it is to initiate the turn. So while I do think that Bob has a point, and I think everything he's saying is totally valid and lines up with what I experienced firsthand as someone kind of a closer build to Bob. What I would say kind of counter to that is that this ski still would feel good for somebody who's big and heavy. I think that it's just a timing thing. Like when you're big and you kind of are used to these big Titanal skis, you're used to being kind of patient and kind of loading and having a little bit of a different consistency. I would say if you're a larger person like me, the Fischers are still a good option. The Fischers still felt good when I skied on them. My brother skis on them and he's built similar to me. He's a big, strong guy and he does not overload the ski. It's just kind of a timing thing. I think that Titanal underfoot still creates good support. Maybe Bob's ski style mixed with that isn't giving him the performance he wants, but God, and I'm usually the person being negative. I'm gonna be positive about these skis. I'm gonna say if you are bigger, you will probably still be able to enjoy these Fischer Ranger 102s. Get the right length, get everything kind of dialed in, test them. If you don't like that easy hair trigger turn initiation, you may not like the ski. So definitely test them. But if you're watching this and you're a bigger guy and you think, oh no, I'm gonna hate the Fischer Ranger because I'm kind of larger, don't be scared of this. This ski is really supportive. I didn't feel like I ever topped out the ski energy-wise. It's still a nice ski. It got, I'm having a little bit of an identity crisis because usually I'm negative and Ski Essentials is positive. But I'm actually gonna look at that negative he's talking about and say, it's not that bad, you have to get used to it. And as a heavier guy, I will say the ski absolutely supports you.
We see in the 108 and just extends with these little arms, kind of similar to what we'll see with Black Crows and K2 and how they shape their metal, just putting a little bit more emphasis on the forebody and through the tail. I kind of feel like this has more of the older Rustler 10 notes where that metal came up and then stopped.
I would agree.
And then it leaves this portion of the ski, which is unencumbered by that metal. So it ends up being more flexible and they add that spoony shape. That's really the big part here is that the width really comes up all through the end, which if you're in soft snow is going to stay right up on top. I've had more success on this than maybe the 96 or the 108. Like you can ski this thing centrally and have it really hook up well. That metal underfoot does help. But nice long, splay to almost match the DPS. You know, it's a little bit shorter at the end, but that's also just because it almost looks like they flattened out the tip shape a little bit. And then, you know, this is more splay than we see in a lot of skis here. So certainly opens up that creativity, that creative aspect to the ski, allowing for, you know, more freestyle, more free ride oriented skiing.
It's also worth pointing out that I skied on the Fischer Ranger 90, but I feel like I can still give you good input on the shape of the ski and kind of how it feels. But I want to be honest with you and tell you when there might be gaps in my knowledge. But anyway, let's keep going.
With that playful release in the tail.
Yeah, if they rounded out that tail,
Yeah.
I feel like people would almost consider it a twin tip, and then it would look, and we've had this discussion before, this is not new,
Yeah.
but it would look more similar to the pink Ranger 102.
Right.
Because we went through that whole process. The dimensions are the same.
Right.
And it's just visually it still looks more directional, and I think that hacking off the end of the tail there is a big reason why.
Yeah, and they called the tip width the same, but they also just varied that taper.
The shovel shape is
The
different.
shovel shape was very different. That older the older carbon nose, you know, for me worked better.
Yeah, it was more like elongated
Yeah.
shape.
This is also something I want to talk about. I've noticed that like the high-end kind of flagship skis have almost completely eliminated carbon, at least as far as what I've been able to see. I had the Atomic Vantage, which had a mixture of carbon and Titanol, and I'm not sure why that is. If people have somehow associated carbon with cheap, it kind of seems that way because like some of the cheaper versions of the Maverick are like the 86C, things like that. Not totally sure why they do that, but I've noticed an industry move away from carbon. And I think that carbon had some weird features, like with consistency, it may have been hard to work with. Who knows what's going on behind the scenes? But I had some skis with carbon where it was kind of used well. I saw some that was used terribly, but on my Vantages, I really liked it actually. I think the Mavericks do a better job overall. It feels like a more consistent turn, but not by that much, I don't know.
But very interesting what they've done with these Ranger 102s. And I think just, you know, certainly could be more in that.
That's really good skiing. I mean, it's like very consistent. He's also skiing in front of a camera where like his line is set up differently, but that's like very smooth turn initiation. And you know, you can't really compare East Coast and West Coast skiing, or you can, but you have to kind of put an asterisk because turn initiation in the East Coast takes more. You have to not only get the edge to initiate, but you also have to get it to set. So I can see where the Fischer Ranger, especially the 90, would be a great East Coast ski. Or in this case, the Fischer Ranger 102 would be really good for kind of like a more tree powder oriented ski. But I mean, it turns really well. It's nice to get the turn initiation done because on the East Coast, you really gotta have strong legs to keep those edges into the ice. Some of that can have to do with tuning, but that's a whole different thing.
Playful zone with the Solomon and the Origin, but the metal underfoot I think does make it, I think, amenable to those higher performance, you know, mixed terrain capabilities.
Yeah, and another thing for me is what are we? Is this the 7th ski that we've looked at? 6th?
I want to say too, I think the metal underfoot keeps it from getting a lot of twisting torsionally and creates a really stable ski. When I was really surprised by was I took these skis out in the spring where it was like really wet, sticky snow. You can get kind of layers of ice underneath the snow. I had a lot of like kind of adverse conditions when I tested these skis, and it felt like I was just there on a groomer bluebird day. These skis really did a good job kind of holding those vibrations, holding those turns, keeping the vibrations out, but then also feeling kind of a quick turn initiation in the woods and easy turn initiation with pressure on my boot when I'm carving. This is a really exceptional ski, and I hardly hear or see anyone ski on them. I guess other than my brother, I don't know. And normally my brother likes terrible skis. These are nice skis. They really surprised me with how they managed to feel stable, and the turn initiation made the skis feel nimble and light. People use those words. What I mean by that is they just didn't feel like they took a lot of energy to get the turn started, and that's a nice feeling when you get used to it.
7.
7.
I think it's the best carver
Yep.
so far. So that's like, that's a big reason for me why it needs to be at least somewhat in this direction on the wall. Is it has some nice grip to it.
Yeah.
And then I think that is like skier weight dependent, because that we've seen more success from myself in that application than from you.
Yep.
Yeah, if you have easy turn initiation and you don't have to like really use all of your weight to get leverage out of the ski, it feels good when you have a ski that doesn't take much to get it started in the tips. I'm someone who doesn't need that, and I still appreciate it though.
And that's fine.
Yeah. I really like the Ranger 102 because every time I ski it makes me feel like I'm a better skier than I think I am.
I mean, that's part of the deal, right? You want to
Totally.
You want something that's easy, that helps you
Yeah.
succeed and progress.
Yeah.
And those are wonderful attributes to have in a
It
ski.
just works so well for how I like to ski, at least in a directional format.
Right.
Well, especially if you like quick, snappy turns, it's nice to be able to have a ski that's ready at kind of a whim to get the turn started.
It is too directional for me to really love it as like freestyle-y free ride ski.
Yeah.
And we kind of went through that testing, and like for me a big reason is because you can't really move the mount point off like this flex cut spot. Like that's where the
You can. It's just going to more dramatically alter.
It's going to mess up
stiffness.
the way that the ski
Yeah.
feels, in my opinion. So being set back that far, it makes things like skiing in the park kind of tricky.
Yeah.
At least, like, I don't know. I just remember doing a rodeo on it and being scared. But everything else is great.
Yeah.
Like, I love the way it feels in the trees and just cruising around the rest of the mountain, and even like popping a 180 off a natural hit and stuff like that. It does it great. It's just not like, this feels more freestyle-y free ride to me than Ranger.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah.
So next ski up here is,
I think what Bob is probably feeling isn't just about his stature. I'm sure it kind of exacerbates it, but I think part of it is just a skiing style. If you like kind of waiting for a turn and savoring it, then you're not gonna like kind of a hair trigger initiation. And on the flip side, I think with Jeff's, kind of his style being exacerbated by being a little bit lighter. When you don't have to put a bunch of weight and energy into the ski, and you have a ski style that likes kind of hair trigger quick turns, you're gonna be rewarded by that ski. So I think it's a combination. I would say if you're larger, don't be turned away from the ski. I think it's more about what kind of ski style you have. Do you like the ski to almost turn on its own? Then you might really like it. If you don't like that, and you like to kind of take those smooth, gradual turns, well, maybe look at something else. Atomic Maverick. Ooh, the Rosignol Sender I found was really good at that. So lots of other different options, just depends on your style. Your stature can exaggerate that, but it's not the entire story here. But overall, I give this review 2 big thumbs up, in part because you have 2 people who ski differently and are built differently, and they're both able to give your opinions. Sometimes when I watch these reviews, it can be a little tricky where you go, okay, I like the ski and you like the ski, but you ski totally different. So am I missing something here? Nice to see both ends of the coin. It's part of the reason I like skiing with Zach so much, honestly, because not only does he have a very different ski style, he's built a lot different than I am, and he has a whole different skill set that I don't have. It's always nice to have different perspectives on this stuff. As far as what they didn't talk about with the Fischer Ranger, I talked about it before. Sometimes the Fischer Ranger has such a hair trigger with turn initiation, it can misread some tilting or any kind of upper body action you have to do in the backcountry. It'll misread that as wanting to initiate a turn. It's not a big deal, but it can just make for uncomfortable sloshed out turns. But overall, I like the ski. So anyway, that's the end of the video. Just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate that in general. Also, we hit 1,000 subscribers, so very cool. Just wanted to say thank you, everyone. It means a lot to me that you guys are all here. It means a lot to me that the comments are also nice. Thank you to everyone out there. But yeah, as always, I'll see you in the next one. See ya.
Beep.